began because there were three things on the wall.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome. Well, thank you. Welcome to our presentation of the Gaza Monologues. In 2010, 33 young people from Gaza believed they had a voice that could be stronger than bombs and the drones of war. Ushler Theatre, through art and theatre, helps the children of Gaza process their trauma and convert the theatre of war into a theatre of action, believing that freeing the land begins by freeing the mind. This performance is a response to the recent urgent call by Ushler Theatre for global performance of these monologues in light of the continuing siege and escalating crisis in Palestine. Today we present a selection of those voices. Thank you for coming. And now I'd like to introduce Miriam Zayed.
Hi, everyone. As a recent alum of John Jay, I've heard the phrase fierce advocates of justice more times than I can count. We see the slogan plastered on every entrance and every online platform. Unfortunately, this institution, as well as the CUNY institution as a whole, refuses to include Palestinians within this frame. Two of the most influential and fierce advocates of justice understood the importance of Palestinian liberation. Injustice anywhere is a threat to injustice everywhere, Martin Luther King Jr. We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians, Nelson Mandela. Western powers do not get to pick and choose who deserves justice and who doesn't. The fascist Zionist entity has bombed every single hospital and university, targeted distinguished academics, doctors, journalists, and civilians. The settler colonial state has not only allowed for a total demolition of the Gaza Strip, but has ensured that it will be nearly impossible to rebuild. As of February 20th, there are approximately 33,000 martyrs. These were doctors, they were lawyers, they were teachers, they were students, they were engineers, they were academics. Most importantly, they were mothers, they were fathers, they were uncles and aunts and sons and daughters and grandmothers and grandfathers. Every single one of these martyrs had a story. They had hopes and dreams. They had family and friends. They loved and they wished to be loved. If you take one thing away from today's monologue, I hope it's the empathy to see every Palestinian as a person and as a story. Now I'd like to introduce Dr. Elise Waterston, who will say a few words.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Elise Waterston, and I am Presidential Scholar and Professor of Anthropology Emerita here at John Jay, which means that I am now retired. Okay, I want to make clear, and I believe I can speak for many Jews, I am Jewish, especially the younger generation who are appalled by what has happened and what is happening right now. That to be Jewish is not the same thing as to be aligned with the state of Israel and political Zionism. Israeli leadership, with enormous US ideological and financial support, claims Israel to be a democracy, when in fact it is now an apartheid state in which one ethnic group holds superior rights over another group living in its midst. A group that has struggled to survive with limited rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Israel is now engaged in full-out annihilation of the Palestinian people in Gaza. 10,000 children dead, 20,000 adults dead. Let us stop there and hold on to that fact. Nothing can justify this slaughter. It must stop now. I am a Jew who was taught a set of values that are diametrically opposed to what we have witnessed, what we witness now, and what we will witness in listening to the Gaza monologues. I was raised on the words from the Talmud found in my grandfather's prayer book. And I quote, "Justice, justice, a word written twice." Why is the word justice written 2 times? To teach us that we must practice justice at all times, whether it be for our profit or for our loss, and towards all people, Jew and non-Jew alike. Judaism commands, love thy neighbor as thyself, and declares this command of all-embracing love to be the fundamental principle of the Jewish religion. Today, we will hear voices from Gaza, words written by Palestinians who have been displaced and dispossessed for a very long time. Let us listen to these voices and reach out to one another in search of justice for them, because that is what we do as fierce advocates for justice, the tagline of John Jay College. There is nothing to be feared by hearing the words of those who have suffered and who are suffering the onslaught by an enormously powerful political force. Violence will not bring safety. We will only be safe when we interlock our arms, when we stand in solidarity with those who have suffered for way too long, and when we each declare, justice, justice shalt I pursue. Thank you. And now, the Gaza Monologues.
Anas Abu Ito.
Since I was a small kid, I've always dreamt of being a professional football player. I believed I would fulfill my dreams, but today, there are a million obstacles in my path. Before, there were no playing fields for adults or even kids. Then the siege came and made everything worse. If I was Prime Minister, I would build playing fields everywhere, especially in schools, and I would let the students play freely, not get kicked out by the school guard. I would abolish all club fees and I would preserve all parks. But dreams, security, hope, and the future are all words that lose their meaning in a city that kills the smallest dream possible. I was a goalkeeper, and my friend Muhammad kept telling me I'm going to get a goal. But I always stopped his goals. It was January 9th, 2009, a day in the war. I was sitting at the front of my house, and someone came to tell me your friend Muhammad was martyred. Of course, I didn't believe it. I went looking for my friend, and I was really scared of the idea of death. I got to the mosque, and I saw the closest friend in my life, Muhammad, wrapped in the flag of Palestine and torn into pieces. I cried. A lot. And I was sad because I couldn't hug or kiss him. And I was just holding him. We went to the cemetery and buried him. And I was sitting there telling him how much I loved him. And I was upset because he left me alone in this world. After I left the cemetery, there was heavy bombing. I felt that the angel of death was following me and not letting me go. But alhamdulillah, I'm still alive.
Fatima Abu Hassan.
When I talk to Palestinian kids in Europe, I feel sorry for them. And I don't wish to be like them because they're in diaspora. They plant their dreams in a land that's not theirs. Dreams grow with the people and the country. I love life, love to play, and love people. I wish I could be the president of Palestine for one day so I can enrich love and peace between people and the hatred and spite in their hearts and end the internal division. This would be my first presidential decision. But unfortunately, I'm not the president, and that's why there's a war. The war opened up like bombing with rain. We came running out of school in fear and found the whole world running in the streets. People were looking for their sons and sisters and mothers. Everyone was running with their heads raised to the sky. Honestly, they looked strange. I saw one of them from a distance wearing pajamas, barefoot and running. When I first saw her, I didn't recognize her. But when I got close to her, wow, that was my uncle's wife, the chic one who doesn't leave the house without looking top-notch. Then I was sure the war had started. It's been a year since we've been talking about the war. We lived it and continue to live it each day in detail. Because the TV and the phone and the doorbell are all things that remind me of the war, I don't like them. You know, I even threw away my mobile phone. And I'm most scared of being alone. I think, what would I do if a war starts and I'm alone? Who will protect me? And when I'm with the family, I start to think, how would I protect them? I had a big dream to become an actress, but this dream started shrinking slowly because people in my country don't look at an actress in a positive way. Even though acting is important and allows me to relay the picture of the suffering of my country and society to the world, I have a second dream if the first one doesn't work out. It's to be a journalist. The third dream is to make a family that I love and who love me. The fourth is for us to be free and for the flag of Palestine to fly freely. The fifth is to see people happy without death, destruction, deprivation, or war. And the sixth and last is for me to finish this monologue and come down from the stage.
Amani A. Sharafa.
Gaza is a plane, carrying people and traveling towards the unknown, landing neither in heaven nor in hell. No one knows when it will land, and people may stay suspended like that for twice my lifetime. All days here are the same. There's nothing new. The simplest thing is that dreams and wishes are hard to make true in Gaza, especially if they're like mine, to be an artist, singing and acting and playing music. In Gaza, the only music is that of death and dancing on wounds. If I go abroad and study directing, how would society look at me? After I graduate, would the country be like now or worse? Everything for me is foggy and unclear, like people's faces on Friday at the Feroz market. And like the day the war began. The first hit was at the Ministry of Passports. My friend and I came out of an exam. It was the first day of the first term exams. We sat in front of the school gate, walking and talking, waiting for our friends. So we'd go home together. Suddenly, there was a series of explosions. I was in shock and felt that I was going to die. We ran away, and I was really scared. I saw the women running and screaming and beating their faces, and I had no idea what was going on I felt I couldn't stand on my legs, and the world started spinning. I fainted and stopped feeling anything. Then, I woke up to my friend's voice shouting, "Amani, for God's sake, wake up!" When I woke up, I started crying, not knowing where to go or what to do. An older girl helped me and took me home. As soon as I arrived, my mother took me in her arms. I was very tired, but at that moment, I finally rested. I needed to fall into someone's arms. For the hardest thing to feel is that your moment of death is near. The war was a black ghost that covered Gaza's day and night. It imposed its hell on people, on the earth, and the sky, and the air that we breathe. After the war, I had a breakdown. A big, wild wave overtook my soul. And I was just thinking I wouldn't be able to come out from under it. But it was like a hand was extended to me through the theater, a rubber ring that pulled me out from under the wave. Today, I feel a comfort I haven't felt in a long time. And I hope I can always stay like this.
Amjad Abu Yassin.
A day before the war, Gaza for me was joy and happiness, trips and going to the sea. Life seemed to be happy, and I wasn't thinking about anything. I had one dream, that Gaza would develop in art and sports. I felt that everything was fine except these two things. But it turned out nothing was fine. No art, sports, health, or safety, it's all the same. Gaza stopped being the city of my dreams because my dream is to be an actor. Am I going to be an actor for 20 people in Gaza and wait till the border opens? If it was in my hands, I would try as much as possible to reduce wars, death, and violence. It's a shame for every drop of blood that falls on the ground. I hate the silence and the abnormal tolerance that people have. I wish all Gaza would wake up tomorrow and walk the streets shouting loudly, "Enough!" When the war started, we were playing football, and the atmosphere was strange. The sky was red. Suddenly, we heard the sound of a plane. I never heard a sound like that. We were all scared and lay on the ground, waiting for death. After that, we heard the sound of a loud explosion meters away from us. We started looking in each other's faces and silently saying goodbye. Turned out the bombing wasn't for us. It was targeting a car of wanted men on the road above. But we kept lying down and waiting for the second rocket. And all I could think of was my two older brothers who were with me. I was more afraid for them than for myself, and I think they also felt the same way. I carried my sports shorts and ran away from the field. As I ran, I stepped on a piece of shrapnel. I took it out of my leg and went out onto the street and saw them. They were 3 martyrs, and you couldn't make out their features. The first one's legs were on fire. He was looking at me and I at him. Among everyone there, he was warning me about something I didn't understand. It was then I knew he was warning me about a car that was coming fast toward us. Then I knew the real meaning of death, and instead of being 3 martyrs, they could have been 4. I was shocked at the scene. I stood there watching, and when I woke up after passing out, I ran home. The war came and went, and we're still living it. The victims are always the poor people who have nothing to do with anything. Even when there's an earthquake or a flood in any country, the victims are the poor people. It's as if there's a universal conspiracy against them. After the war, everyone started lying to everyone else. Lies, cheating, dishonesty, deceitfulness. For positions and interest, the leaders and powerful people commit slaughters and crimes without batting an eyelid or feeling any guilt. Poor people get poorer, and sick ones sicker. I've lost all trust in mottos. The biggest speech from the biggest leader is bullshit. All speeches in the world don't warm up a cold person or someone sleeping in a tent after the war. The crisis is that the whole world is watching us, as though there's nothing going on, and they're still making speeches.
Fatma Atala.
Gaza's fish ran away, but people were not able to. They opened the sewage into the sea, and if the sea could talk, it would tell them, "Shame on you for what you're doing to Gaza and me." Instead of music and acting schools, Gaza became a school for shooting and murder. I'm very scared by nature. I'm scared of cockroaches and birds, and I worry day and night. The first day of the war, all the girls went home except me. I was the last one to leave school. I was sitting there shaking, couldn't stand on my legs. Finally, I felt that if I don't help myself, no one would. So I gathered my courage and stood up, shaking, and walked like a tree in the wind, all of me trembling. People were walking near me, but no one felt me. The sounds of rockets got louder, and the horror in my heart grew deeper. Usually, the distance from school to my house is half an hour. But that day, I got home in 15 minutes because of my fear. It was the time I was the most scared in my life. Every second I thought I would die. It was the first time I feel this terrible loneliness, even though the streets were full of people. I got home and stood at a window. A rocket fell near our house, and I flew off the ground and landed on my back. For the whole war, I couldn't stand at the windows. I started sleeping in an inner room that doesn't have a single window. I think I'm still scared till today, but I pretend not to be.
Rowan Jarud.
Relax, girls. Don't be scared. This is just the sound of aimless shooting. That's what our teacher said as soon as the bombing started. After a while, her mobile phone rang and she spoke a few words only. 120 martyrs? She smashed her mobile into the floor and told us, "Go home, all of you." As soon as I went out into the yard, we saw our parents, some of them in pajamas, some in their undershirts, and some barefoot. We were very scared. My sisters and I kept waiting for Dad, but he was really late, so we decided to go home by ourselves, even though it's a long way. On the way, I saw something for the very first time. A martyr being carried on a coffin wrapped in the flag of Palestine, with banners around him and people crying. But the weird thing is that the funeral barely had 30 people in it. Funerals of martyrs usually have thousands. Then I felt that there was some big catastrophe going on in the country. I got scared for Dad. I didn't want him to come get us because I was scared he'd be hit by a rocket. I was also scared of dying, and I didn't want to die now because it would be a catastrophe if I died and no one came to my funeral. I started running home, and people were running around us like it was doomsday. No one knew where they were going because the sound of rockets didn't stop. Every few seconds, a rocket would fall and shake the ground. I felt the streets were not the same streets, and the people were not the same people. Strange sights, sounds, and smells. After the war, a lot changed inside me. Started hating going to the bathroom. From the second I go in, I can't wait to come running out, because all the time in the war, I was afraid they'd hit a rocket on our house while I'm in the bathroom. In there, one would be in great focus, and you know the rest. I also started hating the morning line at school. When the war started, I was in the line. That's why today I feel that the minutes in the line are hours of fear and worry. All school for me is one pile, and the line is the other. I started having terrifying dreams. All night I have a conflict within myself between desire to sleep and fear of nightmares. Sleep became a monster hiding behind my eyelids. I stay like that till morning. I don't know when I sleep and when I wake up. I want to become an actress. And this is a hard dream to fulfill in Gaza, especially for girls. I tell myself it's a shame for people in Gaza to be deprived of my talent because I could become an important actress. But if they don't want me, to hell with them. I'll go to any country and act there. Gazans are deprived of everything anyway. It doesn't stop at theater. Sometimes I think people in Gaza can barely find food. How are they going to go to the theater? You know? I wish I could live in a civil, democratic society with peace and 20 cinemas and keep watching movies and flying in my imagination and dreaming.
Ahmed Taha.
All my life, I thought Gaza was the biggest and most beautiful city in the world. But once I went with my dad to Jaffa, I came back with my head spinning. After that, I felt that Gaza was the size of a needle hole and wasn't beautiful. And it keeps getting smaller and worse. No one can breathe, and on top of it all, we're not allowed to travel. Every time I walk the streets of Gaza, I suffocate. Jaffa's picture won't leave my mind. I ask myself, where are we? We're so far from the rest of the world. That's why I'm always at sea, because it doesn't feel like Gaza. I keep writing my name on the sand, and the waves come and erase it. Before the war, I wanted to be an electronics engineer. But since the war, I hate going to school. I feel I won't be anything important in my life. And even if I will, so what? It's all the same in this city. Am I gonna be like a pretty flower in a garbage heap? When the bombing began, all the schools in Gaza went home except us. The principal wouldn't let us leave. The kids freaked out, and in a second, they went out into the schoolyard. The weird thing is that I'm in the Zaytuna school, the one near the Ministry of Passports, which got hit first. When this first hit, a piece of rocket flew onto the tree in the school and sliced it in two like a sugar cane. As soon as we saw that, no one stayed in school. Students, teachers, the principal, we fled for our lives. I thought that the only martyr that I would see in the war was that tree. But as soon as I got home, there were 4 martyrs in our street, as though waiting for me to say goodbye to them. When I was done with that, 3 more martyrs from the same family in our street arrived. As soon as we buried them and returned, our neighbor's house, 2 houses down the street, was bombed by the army, and the house was wiped off the ground. Everyone died. I felt most sad for the little girls. I felt the war was targeting me alone out of all the people in Gaza. All day, I'd been seeing martyrs. In the Shifa hospital, I saw a sight that I will never forget. Hundreds of corpses, one on top of the other. Their flesh, their blood, and their bones were all melting onto each other. You wouldn't know women from man or even child. piles of flesh on beds, and lots of people screaming and crying, not knowing where their kids are or the men or the women. That night, I came home from the hospital and was awake till morning from fear. I thought that would only be that night that I couldn't sleep. But till today, I see them in front of me and I can't sleep.
Mohammed Qasim.
My grandmother and I were home alone. She was telling me stories about the days of our country, funny stories and sad ones. But she could never tell me a complete story because she always had to go to the bathroom halfway through. My grandma would spend half her time in the room and then half the other time in the bathroom. My parents came back at 10:30 at night and went to sleep straight away. I couldn't sleep. I was lying on my bed awake, writing my homework. Suddenly, there was a distant explosion. I went to my parents' room and turned on the radio to hear the news. I woke my father up and told him I heard the sound of a strong explosion. He said, "Be quiet and go to bed, it's just aimless shooting." Anyway, I went back to bed and the electricity was out. Suddenly, there was a huge explosion that shook my world. I pulled my blanket and covered my face and something fell on me. I raised the blanket with all my strength and it was the frame of the window that had fallen on me. The entire house was covered in smoke and the blanket was filled with glass. It was the day they hit the workers' union right next to our house. But that's not the point. The point is the stupid things that happen in which I can't find an explanation for. First, the world was on fire and we felt we would all die. But my grandma was looking for her teeth. She was worried that when she died, people would find out she had no teeth. Like they don't know already. Second, the house was full of smoke, and my father lit a cigarette and smoked, like we needed more smoke. Third, my uncle called to make sure we were okay, and my father told him, "Alhamdulillah, we're all fine," but that all the windows except one were broken in the house. My uncle told him to break the last one, and my father did. I don't know why I'm telling you this story. All I know is that we're trapped in a cage, a prison, like an encaged bird who wants to come out but is besieged. Kids are dying in front of their mother's eyes, but no one listens. No one's heart softens, and no one seems to care.
Liam and Dira.
What I love most in Gaza is Barcelona Park. I used to go there 3 times a week. I would spend the whole day on the swings, laughing and playing with my friends. But during the war, the occupation bulldozed it and destroyed it. I went to visit the place and started crying. I remembered where I used to play and where the swings were and my laughter with my friends. I want to be a lawyer so I can defend the people who have been victimized. And you won't find more of them than in the empire of Gaza, because I feel that Gaza is 100 countries and 1.5 million presidents. The tanks got to our house at 5 in the morning. Mom started gathering things from the house and everything turned upside down in a few seconds. Everyone started yelling and carrying what they could, and we went out running in the streets, not knowing where to go. My grandmother said, "You can only go to the schools." And oh schools, our school is more beautiful than all schools. 100 of us used to sleep in one class. From the first night, I got into a fight with another girl about a quarter of a meter and who was going to sleep in it. And I don't know how we slept on top of each other, like a mountain of old, discarded, forgotten clothes. 3 days later, we went back to the house and the neighborhood. But a lot of things had changed. The neighborhood wasn't the same, and the people weren't the same either. The biggest change in me is that I became a gossip. Honestly, I can't hold my tongue. Our theater trainer told me that this is normal in Gaza. All Gaza gossips about each other. But the difference between me and the people in Gaza is that they don't admit they are gossiping, while I admit in my full mental capacities that I am a gossip. Sometimes I find no one to gossip about, so I gossip about myself. I stopped liking Barcelona Park, even though it was restored. The trees are refusing to grow, but I did, and I can't play there anymore. Chaos erupted at our neighbor's house. I went to see what was the matter. Our neighbor informed me that the Israeli army asked them to leave their house immediately. So they did. They live right next door to us. I decided not to move from our home. A minute later, the army launched a warning rocket that forced us all to flee. Few minutes later, the Israeli army hit the house with 2 missiles, and the whole building that was once a tower became a rubble. I felt devastated. May God give us strength. When we wrote the Gaza Monologues in 2010, we felt that the whole world was in solidarity with us. But since the situation in Gaza is worsening, I realize that all the empathy of the world is not able to wipe a speck of darkness from our life. I wish I was able to tell you otherwise.
The Long Minutes of War, written November 8th, 2023, by Ali Abu Yassin.
Let me tell you that in war, you will lose all the trifles, many of the luxuries, and most of the necessities. For example, and you will be left to think about or care about only the very, very, very necessities. For example, you will not be interested in Facebook, and you may find that it is inactive for more than 90% of the people. No one will care who posted a like, or who did not like, or why they don't. The picture of your sick father or mother will disappear, with the words written below it, "Pray for my father," because the bodies are on the side roads and you may not find anyone to bury them. No one will like the pictures of delicious meals or dare to put a single picture on Facebook. Everyone is running after flour, and many people have not eaten for days, and their dream is to get a loaf. Even if you open Facebook or press your finger on it out of habit, you will pass by unnoticed, or even to the point that you will not write to most of your friends, "May they rest in peace," for their obituary posts, because most of the posts are either about death or injuries, or thank God how they escaped a certain death.
As for TikTok, it disappeared from Gaza as if it were a crime punishable by law, along with everything that contained nonsense and not nonsense, which were very, very few. Imagine in Gaza, gossip, envy, and obsession with others, which were one of the pleasures of many people, just disappeared.
Everyone runs from morning to evening to provide his family with food for the day. Compliments, hypocrisy, and pretenses have fallen. Everyone feels that he might die at any moment, and therefore has no energy for compliments, lying, or pretense.
You will realize the value of things that were in your hands or that you practiced unconsciously. And you will discover that your simple actions were the height of pleasure, and you will remember them and dream of their return, such as standing in front of the stove in the morning, turning it on, and drinking your coffee quietly with a piece of chocolate next to it. Yes, the price of 1 kilo of coffee has become $70 or 240 shekels if available. And chocolate disappeared from Gaza weeks ago, along with chips, biscuits, indomie, nuts, and the rest of the family of delicious things. There are only some cleaning powders left in the stores.
You will suddenly discover that your family has forgotten the word bahibbish. I don't like it. For example, if you were able to save some money to cook a casserole of cabbage, everyone would devour it as if it was the most delicious food in the world. It goes without saying that this meal previously costed 50 shekels, but today it costs 150 shekels. As for matluba and musakhan, no one dares to remember them.
The thing you will miss most is your pillow and your bed. You will still dream of returning to them and sleeping one night without the noise of missiles, cannons, and non-stop shooting. You will miss seeing the cars and the traffic that have disappeared and been replaced by the donkeys, which, as soon as you get on the car and jump to sit on it, specifically on the mattresses that the driver places for the passengers, and often puts a piece of burlap or an old blanket, one of the two things will stick to your pants from the back, either dust or water, and a rag or a stain will fall on your pants, the size of a sunflower disc. And the strange thing is that you will not care at all to shake yourself off because everyone is walking carrying the same circle on the back.
You will remember television, movies, series, talk shows, and plays as if they were a distant dream and a high level of luxury. You will greatly miss the dining room, the bathtub, the window of your house, your good neighbors, and your morning walk, whether to work, the market, or wherever. You will realize what it means to have a closet, clothes, shoes, and a refrigerator. A refrigerator filled with fruits.
You will learn how to bake in a clay oven and the taste of new bread. On the way, you will learn how to make this oven from clay and straw and get creative with its various designs, types, and sizes. There is an oven for baking and a small oven for cooking.
You will learn how to make firewood, the types of firewood, the difference between the wood and orange wood, the importance of palm leaves and burning, and the difference between cooking firewood and bread firewood.
Lentils will return to the forefront of the scene, accompanied by beans. You will dream of chicken, meat, and fish.
You will pass over the most important things unnoticed and without emotion, like talking about martyrs. You will talk to your family about the martyrdom of your cousins as if you were telling your wife that you were out shopping, without emotions.
An explosion is shaking the house. I will hug the children.
Thank you. Help me thank our cast. Mariam Zayed. Ali Andrea Ali. Tarek Khatib. Veracity Butcher. Aisha Kudusi. Preeti Tiwari. And our director, Barbara Cassidy. Sorry?
Oh, Dorothea.
And Dorothea. Dorothea. Sorry, yes, Dorothea. So if you'd like to read more of the monologues, this was 10 of the 33. They are posted in all languages at gazamonologues.com. And instead of admission price or copyright for the material, we ask that you pick one of the calls to action that you see on the screen. Either call your council member for an immediate or permanent ceasefire or donate to one of the organizations doing on-the-ground work in Gaza. The program from today's performance will be made available by email If you like it, you can leave your email at the door. And with that, I want to ask you to, we're going to stick around for a while, and if you want to chat or meet any of us, happy to start a conversation.
With some cookies and water, not much, but.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.